Hi, thank you for tuning in for our first Shotgun House Tour Month as part of the 2021 Virtual Shotgun House Month. My name is Anna Pernas. I am the Director of Conservation and Education with the PRC. Today we're touring the gorgeous mid-19th century Marigny home of Bryan Block and Jeff Keller. Before we get started, just a few notes I want to go through. Thank you to our Shotgun House Month sponsors for making this tour possible: Entablature Design and Build, Entablature Realty, Clandestine Events, Axelrad, and Associates Home Inspectors, Colmex Construction, Green Coast Enterprises, Atomic Architecture, Claire Lewis Designs, Durable Slate Company, Ellie Sanders and Isabel Sanders, Emoto, and 89.9 WWNO. We also want to thank the Hellas Foundation and the Klein Lehman Esperanza Fund for the support of the PRC programs, the LOS Freeman Foundation for support of conservation and all the education programs, and the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation for support of the revival grants. I also want to thank you to all the members and donors of the PRC who make our work to preserve the New Orleans historic architecture, neighborhoods, and cultural identity possible all year long. We are a 501c3 nonprofit and rely on the support of members and donors to work to protect the authenticity of our historic city. We are asking that viewers consider a donation of $25 that would have been the price of an in-person tour ticket to watch our virtual Shotgun House tours. Any donate to prcno.org. All donations taken in during the Shotgun House Month will go directly to the PRC's Innovative Revival Grants Program, which makes free historic home repairs for low-income families in the Tremaine neighborhood. And we are working on expanding that program. Donors for $25 and above will receive a complimentary copy of our digital design guide, filled with 3D tours and detailed information about paint colors, materials, and products used on our featured houses. While you're on our website, check out PRC's Fund, which is on sale all month of June. T-shirts, books, masks, everything is 20% off. You can also find our events calendar. This month is filled with Shotgun House Month events, including tours and trivia and Maintain Right programming. The Maintain Right program is a virtual guide for homeowners to provide the knowledge to spot potential problems with their historic houses and find ways to address them, including who to call when the problem requires a professional. Classes range from topics on termite protection to energy efficiency. We're excited to see you join us and participate in these programs. Finally, just want to say you can see us, but we can't see you. Please make sure to submit your questions for Bryan and Jeff anytime during the tour via the Q&A or chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I will be monitoring the questions and I'll get the chance to relay them to Bryan and Jeff at the end of the tour. And please let me know in the chat if you have any other questions or maybe can't, get together, get the screen right. I'll be happy to help. If not, I'm ready to give it over to you guys live in the Marigny. Thank you all.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're so excited to be back for a second virtual Shotgun House tour. Of course, this is not the second Shotgun House tour. We've been doing this for over 20 years to raise awareness about this wonderful vernacular architecture form here in New Orleans, our Shotgun houses. And this year is a particularly wonderful tour that we have to offer you, an incredibly diverse array of homeowners with different styles, and we're very excited to kick it off today at the gorgeous home of Bryan Block and Jeff Keller. Bryan, Jeff, thanks so much for having us today.
Thank you. Love it.
I'd love for Bryan and Jeff to introduce themselves to you before we get started with the tour.
So I'm Bryan Block, and I've known Danielle since we were in graduate school in preservation at Tulane. Now I work with the HDLC and the Blue Clay Commission, doing what we love.
Well, that's a bit humble, Bryan.
Well,
can you tell them what you really do?
Well, I'm the director, but it is what we do.
It is what we do, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Hey, and I'm Jeff Keller, and I work for a healthcare company remotely. I've been working out of the house for about 8 years now, so it's very important to me that this is a nice environment in which to work.
Thanks, Jeff. So Bryan and Jeff, you all, before you moved here, you operated two bed and breakfasts elsewhere in the city. So you've been in New Orleans for a long time, and you had this other enterprise that was a big part of your life for a long time. Can you talk to me a little bit about that part of your life, and then why you eventually decided to leave that behind to come move to this home.
Sure, and it really had a lot to do with my future career in preservation, because the two B&Bs that we had were in two high-style homes. One of them was a Thomas Sully on Carrollton Avenue, and then we had that for 4 years, and then moved to Canal Street and restored a large high-style home, and had that as a B&B for 11 years. And after doing B&B and having the public in our house for 15 years, we realized that we were kind of ready for a career change and done with the big house. So it's kind of, time to downsize. And, this scale is what we were looking for. And we really felt fortunate to be able to find something in the Triangle, because this area was getting very, very bought out, and the homes were, the area as a whole was coming up. So,
and if I can just add on a couple of things. So the last house that we owned was over 10,000 square feet. And when you have that kind of house, it owns you instead of you owning it. So it was a very happy day for me when we got rid of that much to take care of and moved into 1,800 square feet instead. So in this neighborhood, it's just such a little village. The other two houses we have were on main thoroughfares. This one, we know our neighbors. We have neighborhood pubs. We have restaurants. It's just a real great place to live.
So what year did you all move into this home?
10 years ago this week, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
What a great anniversary.
Happy anniversary, yeah.
To celebrate. So what changes have you made to the front of the house, since we're sitting in the front, that you can tell our viewers since you moved in?
Well, it's funny because when we bought the house, it was painted a periwinkle blue color. And I was working in the front yard about 1 week before we decided we were going to start painting it. And somebody walked by and said, "I just love the color of your house. Don't ever change it." Which was ironic because we were going to start painting in a week. It also had board and batten shutters, which I absolutely loved, but I lived with a historic architect who told me that they were not historically correct. So I'll let you take this word.
So we thought it needed to have louvered shutters, and finally he agreed. And Ricca makes new louvered shutters using old cypress. So you get the old growth cypress with new shutters that are designed to your specifications. So that's a really good thing to know about.
Yeah,
we had that done at Ricca, if you want to.
Yeah, and then we painted, and we dug out some of this concrete so we could have some landscaping out here.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the painting. You didn't keep the periwinkle blue forever.
Right.
So how did you choose these colors?
We were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. We found a house in the French Quarter that we really liked their color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was being Mr. Smarty Pants and went to work and pulled out their paint permit and said, well, that's easy because we can just look at these. And we didn't even paint samples. We just gave that to the painter, and they were supposed to be peach and green. And so you can see that whoever that was did not paint according to their permit. So we have no idea what this color is supposed to be, but it's yellow. And then this actually we changed to a Narragansett green, which we had liked on a building in the quarter.
And even though it looks blue, it's technically a green.
Correct.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it really tricks your eye. Do you guys want to talk about the front part at all?
Yeah, let's do, because I think it's an interesting, it makes more sense as the house sort of progressed as it evolved. So when we bought the house, we did some research at the notarial archives and at the conveyance records, and the original form of the house was just 2 bays deep and 1 bay wide. And this was 1840-ish. Because it said in the conveyance records that it was a piece of property with improvements. And then the first Sanborn map shows that it was just one wide and 2 rooms deep. And there's a house around the corner that's exactly the same. So it would have been a very, very simple cabin. And it would not have had this ornamentation until the later part of the 19th century. And as the Sanborn maps show, as the house grew, after the Civil War, they added the second side over here, which is unique in that it's offset. Usually don't see a double that's offset this way. And then when we go inside, you can see how the house began to grow going back.
Should we go inside?
Let's do it. Sounds great.
After you.
Thank you.
Careful on the steps. So this, like I had said, is how it grew back to the fireplace here. This would have been the original 2 rooms. You can still see the beaded ceiling in here. And then they added this side and went back to the fireplace.
This is such an amazing living room. This is so comfortable for entertaining. So talk to me a little bit about when you have guests over. This seems like the perfect spot to entertain and have people with cocktails and whatnot. So tell me about that.
So Jeff?
Yeah, so we,
well, we do entertain, not a lot.
All right.
But when our friends come over, you know, we do like to hang out in here and in the kitchen. And then we just opened up this den office here to the right. And you know how I think it's like anybody's house. You have a nice, comfortable living room, and everybody likes to hang out in the kitchen.
And so we did when we bought the house, we wired it for sound. So as the evening progresses, sometimes this open area right here becomes a dance floor.
That's perfect. I love it. So let's talk about some of the beautiful, there's so many beautiful things in this room. You guys tell me a little bit about the ones that are most special to you.
Well, so that trunk, for example, that was my favorite grandfather's tool chest. And the tools are actually still in it. He was a itinerant traveling preacher and carpenter. I know, go figure.
Wow.
And so that's always been a special piece for us since we got it from my grandfather's barn.
My favorite piece that's in there is a piece of equipment that you use to repair the wheels on a covered wagon.
It's like Oregon Trail.
Absolutely.
Wow, amazing.
And then, you know, this is my grandfather here, I was talking about, and this photograph on the right, and then the photographs on the left are our parents' weddings who got married the same year. And then that's Jeff's parents in the back there, and there's the wedding photograph. And then several of the pieces that are in this cabinet here were my grandfather's as well.
Not everything was Bryan's family. This oil lamp in the middle belonged to my great grandmother. Even though it looks like something you could buy at Walmart today, it actually did come from my great grandmother.
Bryan, tell us a little bit about your grandfather.
Yeah, my grandfather was an engineer, but he was also his love was ethnology and archaeology, and so like that piece of pottery is something that he had put back together with pot shards that he found, and was able to remake the pottery with plaster of Paris. Was a great collector of Indian artifacts and things like that. So we've been able to luckily keep a few of the things that were his, which we're very proud of.
What about the toy on the bottom shelf?
That was my grandmother's, like that was the other side of her family, but it's a little homemade bobblehead cat. Yeah, you can move the head.
Let's turn him.
There he goes.
It used to bobble a lot better. I think one of the strings is broken or something.
And then you were talking earlier about these brackets that are on the wall. I mean, at this opening here, that Jeff had said that he wanted to have some brackets for that opening, and he meant more like typical brackets you would see on the shotgun house. And for Christmas, and I was looking for them, and there was a pickup truck parked out on St. Claude Avenue, selling like a little pop-up of antiques, and he had found these came from India. So I said, "Well, you sell brackets. These are brackets. And then this photograph here is a friend of ours, is a photographer, David Knox, who he sells his work at Cole Pratt, and he does a lot of Southern photography. He drives around and finds these wonderful settings, and then is very creative in how he represents them.
And this guy is a Congolese nail fetish. It's supposedly hundreds of years old. We bought it at Jazz Fest with our friend Teresa, and it's actually got a skull of some kind of animal on the back of it. And this is Bryan's grandmother, who is trying to look like a vixen there. And Bryan's brother, who lives in Berlin, bought us these candelabra wall sconces, and we added the horns from an old costume we deconstructed.
So these paintings you were talking about, this is a painting. This one and the one that's on the brick fireplace there. A friend of ours who lives in Delaware had seen a couple of photographs on our Facebook page from Mardi Gras and told us after the fact that he had painted them and was actually apologizing. That's me. We were on our way to the St. Anne Ball several years ago. And so we were like, of course we want to have them. And then that was 1 year. And then a couple of years later, he had painted the other one of Jeff on his way. We were getting ready to go to Mardi Gras. And so it was really, really great to be able to have those.
And this very talented friend of ours is named John Mateo. And I also want to comment on one of the photographs. Well, all the photographs that are on the wall over here were done by a local photographer, Wallace Merritt, who shows us at Cole Pratt as well. And there's one picture in particular that has an interesting story. Those that we're showing now, that was a family portrait that we commissioned from Wallace. The top one where our daughter Ellen is making a funny face, Bryan was like, do we have to be so serious in all these photographs? And Wallace just laughed and said, you have no idea what's going on behind your head. Another one down here that's really interesting is this one of Bryan. So I was at Wallace's house. Bryan picked me up to go to a Mardi Gras party. Wallace opened the front door and said, oh my God, drug him into the backyard and took that one photograph. And it ended up in black and white magazine. And the facing page was Mother Teresa's feet.
So would you like to see the new renovated office in Den?
Please, that sounds great. Take me there.
Yeah. So with the new shutters that we were just talking about, once the old batten shutters came off, we finally realized how much light was in this room. This was our daughter and son-in-law's room, and like a lot of empty nesters, you end up realizing, well, that's the best room in the house. So we took it over. And Jeff, worked out of the house, and he had been working out in the back of the shed, and so it was just a great opportunity for Jeff to get to into the house and have a really great, nicely lit room that he could enjoy the street. And so
yeah, that's quite a show. There's all kinds of weirdos and strange things happening outside that window. It keeps me nicely entertained during the workday. Yeah. So the desk, the chair, and the lamp we bought from our favorite antique store in New Orleans, La Belle Nouvelle Orleans. It's on Magazine Street. And as we go through the house, we can point out a lot of things that we've gotten from La Belle. That was like from a 1940s and piece when they were making things out of metal more so. And this is my Aunt Claire's dresser, Eastlake, from the late 1800s. It will one day go to my cousin Jake and his wife Robin, but I was lucky enough to inherit it when she passed away. This was a picture I painted when I was 19 years old and gave it to my parents for their wedding anniversary.
It's gorgeous, Jeff. I had no idea that you were an artist.
I'm not. That's the last thing I painted.
This one over here on the left as well.
I love both of them.
Yeah.
They're great.
This is my most recently acquired piece of art, which is my favorite. It's a collage printed on metal by our friend David Knox, who also shows at Cole Pratt. And it's a collage. It's actually 4 different faces put together, and then it's like multiple people and multiple images from a house in Halifax County, North Carolina, and a whole bunch of stuff. So real interesting stuff for me there.
Well, I love it.
Great.
What a happy room to work in. It's so sunny and there's such beautiful art on the walls.
And it's also a little dim. So we love to hang out in here. I'll come out, after work. Jeff's still working a bit. Come have a drink and kind of wind down. So it's kind of added a lot to living here. It's getting to take advantage of this room.
That's great.
Yeah.
He has the temerity to make a drink while I'm still working.
Well,
Head on back.
we just bought this piece of furniture and we got home and found out that it's got a little door in it to keep a little bit of extra liquor so you can fresh your
Oh,
cup.
fun.
Exactly. So
That's the after work, before work, in the drink.
right. So do you want to go on back through to?
And I should mention that is your bedroom,
Right.
but we are not going in there today, but just so you know, Bryan and Jeff do have a place to sleep.
We haven't converted every room of the house yet out of a bedroom.
This was another piece that was part of my, well, I think I haven't mentioned it yet. My grandfather's family had an antique business in Kansas. And so there's a lot of things that kind of came down over the years to us. And this statue of this Turkish woman, she's a card table, I mean, for calling cards. And the reason that the little card tray is broken is that my great grandmother, I believe, it was a lightning storm, and she thought it was a chair and sat down on it. And so it's kind of fragile, but she's held up really, really well anyway. Right.
And interesting, right behind Danielle is, well, she moved out of the way, is those are very old. They're Indian and they're made of tree bark.
It's a type of fabric that they would make from tree bark. This bookcase, my grandfather found out it was came out of an Indian agency in Kansas, and it's still got the label on the back that identifies the Indian agency that it came from. So come on back to the dining room.
So much more to see in here. So this is a very small table. How do you entertain at all, or do you keep it to you two, or?
Do you want to?
Yeah, that is an English pub table, and it's really interesting how it opens up. But it opens up into a table that fits nicely in the room when we have a dinner party.
But it's also nice that it only fits about 8 people, so it's a perfect
too
number.
big dinner party.
You can't over serve, which is great.
Talk to me about the boards.
So we had a good friend who was renovating a house in the French Quarter, and so we were lucky enough to get some of the original beadboard out of the house, and so we created this wainscoting on this wall. And then later, his name is David McPherson. He's an artist and has a gallery on Royal Street, and this is one of his paintings that Bryan gave me for Christmas. So this is kind of the David McPherson room. Next to it is an old Indian mace that's pre-Revolutionary War from South Carolina. My Uncle Charlie gave me that for Christmas when I was 15. It's one of the best Christmas gifts I ever got.
This is a torchère, also from my grandfather's people. The antique store. It comes from an Italian aristocracy that moved to the United States, and a lot of this stuff from their estate ended up in that antique store. These two things on either side of another David Knox photograph are my grandfather's climbing spikes when he was a lineman for the Bell Telephone Company. And he gave them to me. He said, "The only reason I'll let you have them is you swear that you'll never use them. But I'm horrified of heights, so not a problem. I just think they're cool."
So another interesting thing in this room, Bryan's parents lived in Indonesia for a while. And so we brought back, well, we bought it there and had his parents ship it back, which his father was delighted. But that lamari is hand carved in Indonesia. And above it is a picture that was painted with an icon that was painted by the nuns of Mercy Hospital. When we bought the big bed and breakfast in Mid-City, we went in an antique store buying furniture, and that was behind the cash register. And I asked about it, and the house that we were renovating was 2 blocks from Mercy Hospital. So when I told the guy that, he gave it to us for little or nothing. And it hung for years in a very red room in the bed and breakfast on Canal Street.
Is that a homemade mask that I saw above the doorway?
No. That was from a gallery in the quarter. But, yeah, I wish that I was that good to make that.
I would believe it. Your costumes are spectacular, as everyone will see.
Thank you. But
shortly.
Not that. Yeah. This lampshade is something that we found not too long ago, actually, out of an antique mall that's on Decatur Street in the quarter. And it's all ripped up. This is leather panels, but we kind of like that. And the inside, you can see through it to another. They weren't together. The lamp itself is a different piece because it's ripped open. You can see it. It's made out of an old gear. Yeah, which we thought was kind of interesting. And when we were buying it, they were like, "Oh, it's really in bad shape. We'll give you a discount." And that's why we wanted it. So it's just, "Oh, okay, we'll take a discount."
So one more thing, like right up here, while we're bragging about our stuff, that's our beautiful daughter when she was 16.
Another Wallace Merritt.
You can see it.
Love it.
So, and then from here we go on into the kitchen.
We think that the kitchen was probably added in the 80s or 90s, just from the architecture, but we're not sure. But when we were first looking to buy the house, we walked into this room and saw all the glass and how it opened onto the backyard, and we're just really kind of blown away by it.
And when we were, just because I worked at the HDLC, I was looking at the files one day, not too long after we bought it, and there was a letter in it from somebody that used to live here, and this was in the 80s, who said when she bought the house, there were 18 people living in the house. It was 6 adults and 12 children with 20 animals tied up in the backyard. So I can't even imagine how different it must have been then. But the house has gone through many, many changes. The scale of it's changed. They probably didn't even have this addition at the time. So things are very, very different now. Yeah, but this is, this is a great little room. This is where we all end up living. When we entertain, everybody will end up around the bar, sitting in here. This is probably the most used room in the house, for sure, as most kitchens are.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you all have plans to do put your own footprint on this home even further.
We really want to kind of just redo this entire kitchen and make it seem more porch-like. We're not wild about the big picture windows and all that. I mean, we like to keep this much glass and openness. But do you want to tell them about the idea for the porch? The screening porch top?
Yeah, so what we'll do, this big tree out here is completely encased, so we need to get rid of the decking around it. So in order to accommodate the roots, which are actually lifting up the foundation of the house right here, we're going to make this wall into a window seat and hollow it out underneath so the roots won't be digging up the foundation of the house. And then off of this space, we're going to add on the screened-in porch. we love living outside, and we live outside certainly a lot in the winter and the spring, but then the mosquitoes move in. So we need to find out a way to get away from the mosquitoes. So we could do a screened in porch out there.
Well, before we go explore outside, you all have some really interesting furniture pieces in here too. That you could tell us about.
Do you want to tell them the story about that?
This grandfather clock, Jeff has a tendency to like to buy inappropriately sized and scaled things when we're in, traveling or, this was at a strawberry festival in Ponchatoula. So Jeff had to have this, mission style grandfather clock, which meant we had to carry it, to the car through the crowds of people at the festival, like a coffin. And so we're walking through, and people are, being and putting their, daiquiris on it, like
the strawberry daiquiri.
And so that's not the first time you've done something like that. And then Jeff wanted a bar.
Yeah, so we were in the bank. The bank is an architectural salvage place, and sometimes they take old wood and make furniture out of it. So I saw that piece and said, "Oh, that's kind of perfect." So we bought that and put that there for the bar. And then the hutch behind it was a friend of ours was buying a house uptown, and it had one of those little breakfast rooms that had built-in cabinets, and he didn't want that. So it was painted white. We stripped it down and we used it in here.
And I want to put up this photograph that's on the top. This is by our friend Alex Ward, lives across the street. It's a beautiful photograph of some wet tree limbs that we've been very fond of. Yeah.
And if you keep coming down, this was something, the double one was something we bought at the art market on Frenchman. Below that is something that was painted by the sister of a girl that Bryan discovered years later. Her photograph is next to his in the yearbook of Mandeville High School. Eighth grade. And then this picture was painted and given to us for Christmas by my cousin Gay Clyburn, who lives in Monroe, North Carolina, and has recently started painting and has done some beautiful things. And lastly, up above, Maddie the dog painted that at camp the last time she was at Camp Bow Wow.
Just another way to get more cash from dog dad.
Well, and show her
This is Maddie's official portrait, right? Also taken by Wallace Merritt.
She is at camp as we speak, because if she were here, you wouldn't be able to hear us talk. She's very vocal.
She and Danielle have a past, so yeah. So and then let's see.
You guys have incredible pottery throughout the house. I'm sure people have noticed.
This platter is from a dear friend of ours, Charles LaFond. He's a potter, and we've blessed with a lot of the pottery that you've seen. Oh, it's Charles, and so just every now and then he'll gift us with something lovely that just comes to the house unannounced, and so we're very, very fortunate to have very, very many talented friends that are very generous with their work.
Next to that is Baron Lacroix. We bought the Baron at the Merlaton Festival one year in Markey Park. And you tell the artist in the studio.
The artist's name is someone Berman.
Linda Berman?
Linda Berman. Thank you.
Funky Monkey.
Dead Monkey Studio. No, something.
Drunk Monkey.
Drunk Monkey Studio.
Drunk Monkey Studio. The Baron Lacroix is like the spirit of mirth and frivolity and drunkenness. So we thought we'd have to have Baron Lacroix in the kitchen.
This photograph above you is this panorama of St. Charles Avenue at Tulane University in Audubon Park in 1906. That a friend of ours gave us. So Danielle, that's where Danielle and I met. Right there.
So very long ago. Let's look behind you. I'm very curious about these monkeys.
Mitchell Goday.
Mitchell Goday. Yeah. His Barrel Full of Monkeys. Those are like some of his favorite works. But Mitchell is very famous New Orleans glass artist, and Lately, he's been really focused on social issues and has done some amazing pieces of art that are focused around the violence in New Orleans and things. You know, he's a very outspoken proponent for the public good, trying to make our lives better.
What about this jazz painting? Anything to say about that? It's beautiful.
It was one of Jeff's purchases when he was day drinking, and it came from a gallery on Royal Street, and I can't remember the guy's name.
I can't either, but we have a new policy where there is no art purchases made during day drinking. Even though we love this very much.
I was going to say all that aside.
We love it very much.
I really love that painting.
You know, don't, amazing how you can
Anyway, and right over to the right of that is another one of his grandfather's Indian pieces, and I love it for what it is. But the best part about it is on the back is written the guy's name, and it's John Stink.
He was a real character.
He was real.
Yeah.
So that's John Stink.
These sconces and these lights over the bar, these are also from the Belle Nouvelle Orleans, where we had gotten the desk and a few other pieces.
You know, Fernando, who owns it, just finds all these great things and makes all these pieces. On the counter in the kitchen, you can see another artifact from Indonesia. We've got a lot of them around, but Bryan's parents made sure that we got a lot of neat things from Indonesia when they lived there. Those are wayongs, which are like these puppets that they do shows.
Should we go out to the garden?
Yeah, let's do it. We're so lucky that the rain stopped just for us.
Perfect. Y'all timed it perfectly.
So this, I wish you could have seen this 2 months ago after the freeze. This was brown and dead. But we were really lucky that a lot of the stuff came back. I mean, for example, the banana trees over there. I mean, they just came back, and look how big they've gotten with all the rain that we've had recently.
And a lot of this stuff just really comes back like weeds, which is so great, you know. When we bought the house, it was just 2 planting strips on either side, and it was very, very, you know, suburban and 2-dimensional. So we've worked really hard to try to give it more lushness. A friend of ours who's an interesting, eccentric character called me up one day and said, "You need to have a fountain." And I'd already bought a bathtub from him. And so I said, "All right, I'll go look at your fountain." And I said, you know, we don't need that. And he said, no, I've already got these guys rounded up, and I'm going to bring it right over. And so we're like, okay, I guess we're going to have a fountain now. And I mean, it really was an important centerpiece for the gardens. He
was right.
He was totally right. Yeah.
Another interesting thing, since the freeze, we planted this tree. I ordered it online, and it came as a 6-foot stick about 2 months ago. So it went from being a stick to that in 2 months. Yeah, it's
the rains have blessed this tree. I mean, everything back here is so lush. It's so gorgeous back here. You all must spend a ton of time tending to this. It's
Not
so
much.
Dramatically beautiful.
I mean,
Really?
we really don't. All this stuff. You know, we kind of got a philosophy that you got to be on your own out here. We don't spend a lot of time tending it. We put it in and keep it watered, but that's it. It really is. And it's a nice. It's all, you know, I don't think all this stuff is necessarily native, but it's stuff that really likes this climate.
Is one of you the horticulturist here, or do you both do it together?
Yeah, we both do.
pretty much equally.
Yeah, we'll tag team it.
This also seems like an amazing spot for cocktails.
Very much.
So I'm sure you do a lot of entertaining out here.
That glider belonged to my grandfather and his sister, Cora. When I was a child, it was on their porch, and I would go sit there, and if for some reason my mother and Aunt Cora and I would always sit on there. I was in the middle, of course, and I could still hear Aunt Cora saying, "You want you a Coca-Cola?" And I'd say, "Yes, ma'am." Or I'd probably say yes, and my mother would say, "Yes, what?" I'd say, "Yes, ma'am." And so she'd bring me one of those tiny little 6-ounce Cokes. So that thing has been in my life for as long as I can remember.
That's amazing.
who knows? It was white at the time. Who knows how many coats of paint are on there?
These two tables were made by a friend of ours who's a metalsmith in Raleigh, North Carolina, Rand Esser. So those are some of our very first purchases, and we really couldn't afford them. And he was giving us a really good deal anyway, but we still couldn't afford them. But they've been favorites for 30 years.
They're very arts and crafty, like a lot of the furniture in your house has that vibe.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the shed. So, back
we're all dying to see.
This was Jeff's office until he moved inside. And then the other side is the costume shed. So be careful on these steps because they get kind of slick when they're wet.
You can hear the calliope on the river, yeah.
Well, another place where we have a lot of fun. And it was just an ugly, drywall covered shed. And as we got into it and began to use it and live out here, and we felt like it needed to be inspirational. And we had all these textiles from when my parents lived in Sumatra. And I just came out here one day with a ladder and a bunch of push pins and pushed it all. Literally was just thrown together.
While she's here, I want to highlight this piece. This is I bought this from La Belle Nouvelle for Bryan for Christmas, and so he could house all his buttons and beads and knickknacks. It's an old pharmacy case, so they would have had all the pills laid out and stuff. So anyway,
it's just all inspirational, And then we all come out here, and it's time to put on costumes and stuff, and everyone tries stuff on, and they throw it, and so it ends up with a big pile of stuff, and everybody just has a great time and gets inspired and has something to wear next time.
Do you make a new costume for you and Jeff every Mardi Gras, or is it just as
pretty much? This is Jeff from last Mardi Gras.
So Bryan sews. We'll spend a year sewing these fabulous costumes. The one on the left I commissioned for my 60th birthday present. Oh my gosh, I just told everybody how old I am. But then you saw the one shown previously. Basically what I do is I buy tacky fabric and I use a hot glue gun and glue it to an old coat. So, he sews and I hot glue.
These epaulettes were like a stripper bra,
it was a harem girl.
That's
a harem girl outfit. And so I was looking at it and I went, that bra would make some great epaulettes.
So, it's just, we live in New Orleans. That's what we do.
Lots of masks.
Yes.
So you do masks and hats as well.
Yep. And, mix and match. Everybody it's amazing too. Friends will come out here and throw something together that we've never seen before. Yeah. And I much prefer everybody like you're on your own. You go dig through and figure it out and stuff. We don't curate everybody's costumes. That's what's great about it.
I bet you can tell something about them that you didn't know about them by what they choose.
Sure,
absolutely.
We're usually very impressed with what they come up with too. Yeah.
Another shout out I'd like to give is to Oliver Manhattan. A lot of the things in here Oliver did, like this headdress and whatever yoke thing, however you call that, the crown. But she is an extremely talented Mardi Gras costume artist locally.
What do you find brings you inspiration, Bryan?
Deadlines. It's like Mardi Gras is literally 6 weeks away, and we've got to come up with something. But it's nice to have lots and lots of, my mom is really wonderful about haunting thrift stores, and she'll come back with just grocery bag, big sacks full of all this fabric that she'll buy, like the fabric for Jeff's coat, this really, really nice brocade. 5 yards she bought for $1.50 at the thrift store. So it's like the cheaper, the better, the more fun. And so a lot of this fabric is my mom. She's just so inspirational. and oh, it's wonderful. Yeah.
And Bryan, also a watercolor artist. These are some things.
Well, this is learning, so we have a long way to go with that. So it's just this is such a creative town, and there's always an opportunity to do something with it. So, and like this jeweled thing that's on the wall here, we bought in Texas. We were visiting my Uncle David, and we were in an antique store, and I picked that up, and it's like, we took it to the cash register, and the lady goes, "Ooh, what are you doing?" It's like, I have no idea, but we gotta have it, and we'll figure something out.
So are you ready to go sit down and see if any of our viewers have questions for you all?
That'd be great.
All right, let's go.
This scares me, but yeah, let's do it.
Be careful on this. You can see how slippery it is. I have fallen. So why don't we just go sit in the kitchen?
Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just wanted to make sure. The tour was great. Thank you, Bryan and Jeff, again. Now know where your hidden liquor is next time I come over. Thank you. I'll keep notes. We got a lot of questions on some of the house materials and some of the furniture. So I'll just get started with that. It looks like some people were really interested in the floors, and they wanted to know if those were the original floors and if you had any information on like how you refinish them, take care of them, or anything like that.
That is a really ironic question because they are the original floors, and when we moved in here, they were perfect, and then we bought Maddie the dog, and so they have been pretty much destroyed. They probably look like they are 300 years old now, but in some places they
more so in the front, by the front door, the dance floor, So we have not dated them, we haven't refinished them, we haven't done anything to them.
All right. Yeah, it looks like the pine floors that you see throughout a lot of the New Orleans houses.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was asking about your front door. Was that original to the house, or is that something you purchased?
It's probably not original to the house, but I would say it's late 19th century. You see this door very commonly in the district. The guys across the street have two of them with the same door. So my guess is that they were probably a very fashionable door at the time, and could have been bought through a catalog. But the original door was probably much simpler than that.
Yeah, they probably did those, added those front doors when they did the Victorianization of the front, the brackets and things like that.
Right. The kitchen hutch that you talked, I think it's the one that you guys were using as the bar. They wanted to know if you had information about the date of the hutch, the type of wood. They say they have one just like it in their rented shotgun, and only just a little bit bigger, but don't know anything about it. Do you have any information on what they used for this bar?
So that hutch was it's made of cypress. The age of the house, I'm going to estimate, would have been early 20th century.
Yeah, it's a Queen Anne. But it's not. I think that's a pretty common thing, pretty common built-in for the time. And when we first saw it, it was painted, so they had it dipped.
And if you notice at the top, the crown molding only goes around the front and then one side because the other side butted up to the wall. It was built in.
Nice. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Another person was asking about the rally, the metal worker for that table outside. Do you still have the contact information or the information for them?
I do, as a matter of fact, they're very good friends of mine, and we can get that information to you through Danielle. We can add that to the list of contacts. I don't know, but his name is Rand Esser in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I can definitely get you the contact information.
Could you repeat his name? Sorry about that.
It's Rand, R-A-N-D, last name Esser, E-S-S-E-R.
All right, and I'll send that name over to the attendee that was questioning that. And if not, we could post that on his contact information once we get it from you guys.
Great.
Let's see. So some other questions for the outside were that tree that you said that you had ordered. What kind of tree was it that had arrived as a stick?
I was going to say that, and Bryan or somebody cut me off. It is a redbud tree. I can't remember the exact variety, but it's a type that in the fall, leaves turn a deep burgundy red, and then in the spring, blooms, the purple blooms, and then bright red leaves come out, and they last until about mid to late May. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Let's see. The island in the kitchen is beautiful. It seems to have an industrial look. Any history behind it?
No, it was here when we bought the house. You know, like we said, we think that this kitchen was added in the late 80s or 90s. And the stainless steel top is really nice and durable, except it's very cold in the winter time, which is not something I would have thought about. But in the winter, we just come in and put cloth placemats down, so it's not quite, because it's like, you know, yeah. And I know you just wouldn't.
Well,
think
it's good for baking.
Oh yeah, and you don't, you don't really have to worry about it. Except I did one time take a pie out of the oven and put it onto the cold metal, and it immediately shattered the pie plate. So that was the end of that pie. So don't, if you ever do this, put down a hot pad.
Good to know.
Yeah. Nothing learned.
Yeah. Are the enamel sinks and bathtubs common to New Orleans shotguns?
The ones in the backyard is probably what they're asking about.
Yeah, the big bathtub in the back.
No, those are all things that we have picked up. The two bathtubs, each of them we had to have for various reasons that we've never done anything with them. And then the sink,
but we're going to.
We will. But the sink came out of a recent thing. There's a house being renovated uptown, and they were getting rid of them, and so we were lucky to just get one for free. But it weighs about 9,000 pounds. And so our friends across the street got conscripted to, well, our friends David Knox and Chase had to get it from the house to the car. And then our friends Alex and Brad had to help us get it from the car to the back of the house. So we don't have any friends over there.
So, it's interesting, when the house was first built in the 1840s, of course, the bathrooms were out back. From the Sanborn maps, we could see that the original house was 2 rooms. Then there were a bunch of outbuildings. I'm sure there was an outhouse, the kitchen, and the stables, and as well as other buildings out in the back. And I'm trying to think about the like bathtubs and fixtures that I've seen in other shotguns around. Probably, pretty typical. Yeah,
I think so.
Right. And then the last question I have for now is, do you know offhand what color you used for the dark blue trim in the front office?
Yes, it is Newburgh green. So it's a Benjamin Moore, and it's one of their historic colors. And so the shutters are the bottom color on the paint swatch thing, whatever you call those things. So the bottom one is Narragansett green, And then the middle one, which we did the trim in the office, is Newburgh green. I know. And certain lights, when certain light catches them, you can tell that they are more green than, they have similar colors that are blue and very similar, but when the light hits it just right, you can tell the difference.
Great. We've got lots of thank yous and just to say how much I love this. So really good feedback and everyone seems to really love it. Just got one more in.
Wonderful.
Curious about the stove in the front of the fireplace. Oh, that must be in that front room, the stove. I think we skipped that.
Right.
Well, it was in the house when we moved in. It's strange that we're going to go look at it. So it's strange that we can't really see any indication other than the chimney of the fireplace, but there is this big brick hearth. So it may have been that there was always a stove in here instead of a fireplace. We don't know.
And then there's a hole there where a pipe would have gone for the exhaust.
Yeah, it's got a little monk crawling around in it now.
We have a ceramic insert that has filled with alcohol, and so in the winter, not drinking alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and so in the wintertime we do light it, and it's wonderful, and it heats up, and it really does take the chill off. So we really enjoy that.
Yeah, this room is huge, and it's 14-foot ceilings, and so it gets really cold and stays cold all winter. So it's nice to be able to fire that stove up and warm it up.
Turn these chairs around and snuggle up to it. It's nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
It weighs
Got another.
It doesn't go anywhere.
This one's not a question, but they want to let you know that your house is absolutely stunning. They love the style, the decor, and is one of their favorites by far. Great job.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
Well, Bryan and Jeff, this has been an incredible treat. Thank you both so much. This is an unforgettable house. You are unforgettable people. And thank you so much for hosting us. We're truly honored.
Well, we're very honored to be included, so thank you so much.
Yeah, very much so.
It's been a lot of fun. And it's encouraged us to finally clean up the house and get it painted. So.
We washed the windows for the first time in 8 years.
Well, that's great. This looks like we're all done on my side. So I want to say thank you again, and we'll see you for the next one.
Sounds great.
Hey,
thanks.